We are live. For those who are already tuning in, would love to know where people are tuning in from. Feel free to drop in the chat where you're calling in from. Me and Lisa are here in Manhattan, New York. Give folks a few more minutes. Wow, all over. Philly, quite a few in Pennsylvania. Another New Yorker. Wide variety. Cool. Give folks maybe one more minute and then we will get started. If you haven't gotten a water yet, maybe get a water, snack.
Yes, Jason, we will email recording to everyone after the session with additional resources if we have any that are relevant.
Cool. Well, it's 2:02 and I want to make sure that we cover all the exciting things that we have prepared today. Hi everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We know your days are super busy, so really appreciate you being here. Today we're going to walk through what's new in Coast, and specifically some of the features that we've recently built and launched. So we'll walk through how they work and the problems that they're designed to solve. To quickly introduce myself, I'm Jessie, and I'm a product marketing manager here at Coast. Sorry, Elise. I work closely with our customers and spend a lot of time talking to folks like many of you on the call today, so business owners, fleet managers, finance leaders, to really understand what's working well for you, what's might be frustrating in your day-to-day, and what you wish existed in Coast. I saw some familiar names in the attendee list today, so I'm excited that we get to connect again. So throughout today's session, I'll be jumping with some color and questions to try to bring in that customer perspective, but please feel free to use the chat as we go and drop in your questions at any time. We have Emily, Larry, and Rachel also from the Coast team who works on our product, who will also be in the chat to try to help answer some questions. So don't worry, we'll try to address them either live in the moment, cover them at the end, or we'll definitely follow up after the webinar. Elise, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm replacing Alexandre today, our head of product, who unfortunately couldn't join, so I work with Jessie in the product marketing team. And so as she said, we work closely with the product team, and our job is to make sure that you make the most out of Ghost. And so we're typically the people who send you emails, who write the website, etc. So really excited to be here today and show you what the team has been working on recently.
Sweet. So today, for our time together, we'll cover the new features that will help you save money, tighten your spend controls, and we'll cover even more exciting stuff that we have coming soon. So before we jump into what's new, I just want to take a quick step back and level set for anybody on the call who might not be fully familiar with Coast. So Coast isn't just a better fuel card. It's really three things in one. So at its core, yes, Coast is a fuel card. You get the controls that you would expect, the ability to manage your fleet and vehicle-related expenses, and we have some awesome integrations like telematics that help you keep a close eye on what's happening in the field. But Coast is also a corporate card. So that means you can manage your employee spend beyond just fuel, whether that's things like tools, travel, back office expenses, with the same level of clear controls and policies built in. And just as important, Coast also functions as a simple expense management tool. So you can monitor transactions in real time, collect receipts, and really we're here to help you streamline your accounting process. And for many of our customers, that's actually translated to closing the books 2 times as fast. And this broader view is important because a lot of what we're going to cover today builds on exactly this. Coast isn't just about managing your fuel transactions. It's about giving you truly one place to manage all types of spend with ultimately clearer visibility, tighter controls to help you get more consistent savings across the board. So something that is important to us here at Coast is we really don't want to build in a vacuum. So Lisa and I are constantly in conversations with customers, listening to what's working, where things might be breaking down. And when we take a step back and look at these conversations that we have as a whole, there's a few clear themes that emerge that really shape how we think about what to build next. And I think these things really set the context for what we're going to walk through today. So the first thing is visibility and control. We hear it directly all the time. I want to gain tighter control around fuel spend. So there's really a desire to not just assume the spend that's happening in the field, but really knowing, and for it to happen the way that it should. The second is measurable cost reduction. We had a customer say, I want to ensure that we're spending at all the most advantageous partner stations available. And it's about being confident that you're actually capturing the savings opportunities that are available to you. And the third is operational simplicity. So this means, less chasing employees for receipts, less manual oversight from you, and really just trying to reduce the amount of inefficiencies that truly add up over time. And so what we're going to show you today is a direct response to those themes. So without further ado, let's walk through what we've built. So I'll start with a set of updates focused specifically on helping you lower your fuel costs in practical ways. And that's something that's becoming even more important as fuel prices continue to fluctuate. So let's get started and first see how you can control where your team fuels up. So fuel prices can vary a lot, up to 30 cents per gallon, oftentimes within the same town. And as a fleet manager, you're responsible for keeping fuel costs under control across dozens, sometimes hundreds of fill-ups every week. And those price differences can add up. And so Coast already helps you today to proactively spot savings opportunities. We help to highlight higher price stations and surface spend trends so that you can see where you might be overspending. But identifying the expensive stations is really only half the battle. You can tell your drivers where to fuel up instead. You can try to send manual reminders. You can try to, vocalize at the beginning of a day where to go. But when they're on the road, convenience really oftentimes wins. And so they end up stopping at, the station that they're used to going to. But that might not always be the cheapest station. And so with Coast block and only allow controls, you decide exactly where your cards can be used. So if there are specific stations or brands that might be overpriced, you can block your team from spending there while leaving all other options open. If you want to be a bit more prescriptive for your team, you can choose the only allow control. And so that means cards will only work at those stations or brands that you trust the most, whether that's because of better pricing, better coverage, or better rebates. So with these controls, your team will be able to spend where you want them to, and you'll save more at the pump without having to chase down every transaction.
And Jesse, one quick question for you. Do you see customers use this mostly for gas stations? You gave a lot of examples with gas brands and gas stations, or do you see them also use this for other types of expenses?
Yeah, it's a good question. So fuel is an obvious use case for this control, but we're seeing a lot of our customers apply the same logic to other categories of spend. So, for example, instead of allowing, your team to spend at all office supply stores or retailers, you can use only allow to only enable spending at a specific brand that you want them to go to, a Home Depot or a Lowe's, and nowhere else. Cool. So now you've identified where you can save. You've put guardrails in place with these block and only allow controls. But there's still an important piece, which is how do you actually get your drivers to go to, the best, cheapest station while they're on the road? So fuel savings really, only happen when your team fuels up in the right places. And so even with policies in place, your team is busy. They're thinking about their next job, the route, the traffic, the timing. They don't have time to, explore around maps to compare prices manually or try to remember, for example, those stations that you told them are blocked or that you prefer. And, as a fleet manager, maybe you don't have a great way of telling them where to fill up either. And so there's also, as part of that, a balance to strike. You want your team to fill up at cheaper fuel stations, but not at the cost of sending drivers, out of their way and disrupting their route. So really, this challenge is how do you guide that driver behavior in real time without adding friction to their day? So with Coast Fuel Finder, we bring your fuel strategy directly into that driver experience. So inside the mobile app, drivers can open the Find Fuel tab and they'll see the nearby stations with real-time pricing. And I'll show this in a second. Best price stations are surfaced all the way at the top so that it's easy to spot. So it makes making the choice really easy. If a vehicle also has a specific fuel type, for example, the map also automatically filters to compatible stations. And any stations that I've mentioned that you might have blocked based on the rules that you have or chosen to only allow, that is also reflected directly in the app. So they really just select the best option nearby and they tap to get routed instantly.
Great. And Jesse, so if you have a fleet that has both diesel and unleaded, how would that work in the app?
Yeah, that's a good question. So yes, the employees who would be driving diesel vehicles will only see results in their fuel finder for diesel prices, and they can choose the right station based off of those prices and not unleaded. Cool. So with that, why don't we walk through what saving money on fuel costs looks like in practice and in Coast? So let me just share my screen. Cool. So let's say that I'm a fleet manager of a residential solar business. Instead of manually reviewing transactions to figure out where fuel costs might be creeping up, I want Coast to surface what needs my attention. So if I go to reports after I've logged into my Coast portal, I can see in one quick glance here in the expensive stations map where my team is paying the most. And the highest price station shows up at the top, marked with an orange pin. And when I click into the station, for example, I'll get more information about the price and see on average that, hey, this station, this Chevron station is more expensive than others in the area. So if I decide that I don't want fuel purchases happening at this station going forward, I can take action directly by clicking block this station. And I can select whether I want to block this location or the entire brand. And the spend policies that I want to apply the rule to. So for this instance, I'll just block this location since I know it's expensive with other options nearby, and I'll just apply it to a people policy that I have. Cool. Now if I now switch over to the fuel finder, 1 second. Cool. So now, switching perspectives to the driver, say I am a driver who just finished a solar paneling job and need to fill up before heading to my next one. So I open the Coast mobile app and I tap into Find Fuel. Immediately, I see nearby stations ranked by best option. So this would be based on price, distance, fuel type, and company policy. So, normally I might go to the Chevron station on Melrose Drive, but that's where I'm used to going. But here I can immediately see that this is blocked, and so I know that I can't fuel there. So instead, I see that Casey's is the top recommended station, and that is marked in green. So if I tap into Casey's, I can see more details. And then from here, I can confirm that this is the best available price nearby for regular fuel. And I can actually even see that that I get a Coast rebate from there as well. So once I'm ready to go, I tap go here for directions. I'm prompted to open Google Maps or Apple Maps. And then the route opens immediately, and I can start my navigation. So that's how it all comes together. So for fleet managers, Coast really makes it easy to identify where you might be overspending, set the guardrails that you need in place in the portal, and then the fuel finder really helps your drivers make the right fueling decision in the moment. Let's stop sharing there. Cool. And next, Lise, I will hand it over to you to walk through some really cool things that we've built to help your team tighten their spend controls.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. So Jesse covered some of our cool fuel features. I want now to spend a little bit more time thinking about the other types of expenses that you can manage with Coast. So for context, most of you probably started using Coast for your fuel expenses, and it makes sense. That's why we started Coast. That was the obvious problem that we were trying to solve. But over time, as we started talking to people, we realized that it was very important for you to also manage other types of expenses, whether it's your employee expenses or maybe your vendor spend, subscription software, and all of this. And people have some issues around this. One, you want controls. You have controls on your fuel cards, but usually corporate card, it's more difficult to determine who can spend on what. You also need visibility into what is happening, and then there's also usually some accounting challenges when it's time to reconcile your transactions, sync with your accounting system, and all of this. So we turn Coast into an all-in-one solution that lets you use one card for fuel, but also other types of expenses. So you keep the same controls that you have on your fuel card, but can expand them to your corporate card as well. So the team has been shipping a lot of different features over the past few months on this, and I will specifically cover some of the products that help you get more control over your corporate card expenses. So just to give you all a little bit of context, I wanted to start by explaining how we think about controls on your corporate cards. And it really happens at three moments. There's what is happening before the transaction, which is when you determine your rules. And if you don't use Coast for your corporate card today, maybe you have an expense policy, you share it with your people, you hope that they comply, you determine who can spend on what. And you hope that people will actually respect the rules. Coast makes it automated, so you can determine in Coast, similar to your fuel controls, who can spend where and how much. And the additional thing that you can do with Coast is also select what type of information you can provide for every transaction. It's usually very important for people to get a copy of the receipt, to maybe collect additional information and context around the transaction. Why did someone pay for something? What is the job code that is tied to the expense? So Coast makes it easy for you to decide what you want to collect for every transaction. Once you determine your rules, the payment can happen, and whenever people use the card, Coast will automatically enforce those controls. So you don't have to think about it, you don't have to rely on people complying. The policies automatically apply when the card is used. And I will cover another really convenient feature if you like to have extra control and you actually want to keep your cards locked, which is having the ability to ask employees to request spend before it happens. And then once all of this happens, hopefully you have all of the information around your transaction. People can spend only on what they are supposed to. Now comes the time to review and approve everything. And Coast also help you do this. Hopefully you get all the context you need for your review, and then we make it super easy to approve or decline requests in real time. So now I'm going to cover some of the features to help you do all of this. Okay, so the first thing, and maybe you've seen this feature, you want to collect some information about your transactions. You want a receipt, maybe a job code, maybe an accounting category, and maybe you already use Coast to collect some receipts. We recently made this more flexible because we know that a lot of users actually have very unique fields that they like to collect that are tied to their accounting process or reconciliation. And so we now give you more flexibility to collect things like a job code, a GL code, anything you might be using that helps you do your reconciliation. And we made it even more flexible by letting you select what field you want to collect in which circumstance. And so we'll go through some of these examples, but a few use cases that we see our customers really appreciate is, one, getting a job code when a technician, for example, is purchasing some supplies on the job. It might be required to go to Home Depot because there's a missing tool or supplies, and then you want to know what the purchase is for so that you can tie this expense to your job and measure your profitability. We also see a lot of people require some GL codes, accounting categories, so that it can speed up the reconciliation process afterwards.
And Lise, quick question. Can you remind us, can customers import their job codes and GL codes into Coast?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we won't cover this in details today, and we can definitely follow up with everyone on this topic, but we have multiple ways that you can collect all of these attributes. We sync with a lot of accounting systems, so if you have your chart of accounts, for example, in QuickBooks or NetSuite, you can import it into Coast, and so you would have a drop down of all of those fields. Same thing with some field service management software like BuildOps or Noify. We can import this directly, and you can also import manually those fields. So when you prompt your users to add those information, they have a drop down and can select only the things that apply to them.
Very cool.
Great. So now moving on to something that will be available very soon and that I think is going to be very exciting for those of you who like to keep their controls really tight. We hear from our customers all the time that giving out a fuel card to your drivers is fine, but giving them a corporate card is a lot more scary. You don't necessarily want them to be able to spend on multiple things. And so a lot of people actually prefer to add some friction and prevent people from using corporate card. In practice, people actually need to spend usually. And so if you are a trades business, maybe you need some additional tools or supplies. And so when that happens, and that is going to delay the job because something is missing to complete the job, maybe your technician needs to go back to the office so they can borrow the corporate card, or maybe they need to advance cash and now you have to deal with reimbursements, which can be very tricky to manage with expense reports and all of this. And so we are working on this really cool feature that is going to allow you to keep your card locked, but ask your drivers to make a request every time they want to make a purchase. And so this way you can keep your card just for fuel, but when someone needs to go to Home Depot or needs to make an unplanned purchase, they can make a request from their phone asking for a specific amount at a specific merchant and adding a little bit of context. And then your admins, your finance team, or their manager will be able to review this request and decide if the card can be opened for this. If they think it's fine, they will approve the transaction, and now the card is locked just for this amount, just for this merchant. And if it's not approved, you can just request the transaction. So it's a really nice functionality if you like to keep your controls really tight. It's not necessarily the most flexible option, but we know that some of our customers really like to keep their controls super tight. Great. And then, so now you determine some rules, you have collected a lot of different information, and now it's time for you to approve those transactions. So how people manage this usually is that at the end of the month or maybe throughout the month, they will review every single transaction, make sure everything checks out, there's a receipt, all the items are right, the information makes sense, there is nobody's using the card for personal use and all of this. This process is very comprehensive and usually very effective at giving you some control, but it can be very time consuming and can just be a little bit tedious because you have to review every single transaction. And so we wanted to offer you something to speed up this process. And so Coast now lets you centralize all of your approvals and determine which transactions need to be reviewed. And this is going to allow you to focus just on the most critical transaction, maybe because they are for a larger amount and they're a bit more critical, or you want to control the expenses of a specific team member who maybe has the ability to spend more than others, or maybe you want to check some specific merchant categories that are a little bit more sensitive. You can add a lot of flexibility for this, but the idea is that you can determine which transaction will require approval. And then based on this, your team in the office, usually the finance team or maybe the manager, will be able to review those transactions, approve them or reject them, and ask for additional information. So that also gives you an additional layer of control once the transaction happens.
And Lise, can you set up a specific person as an approver?
Yes. So we know this is something that our users really care about. Usually there's multiple departments, and so you can now specify which person will be responsible for the approval in every case. And so this is coming very soon, and so you will be able to see this in the portal in the next few weeks.
Cool.
Great. So now I'm going to make it more concrete by showing you a little demo of what that would look like in the portal. Okay. Perfect. So I'm working in the same company as Jessie for a solar residential company. I'm the CFO, and so I care about a few things. One, I want to make sure that my technicians can spend in the field. I don't have full trust necessarily, but I want to give them some flexibility to spend when they need a few things here and there, some supplies, some tools, and all of this. The other thing I have is a sales team that travels a lot, and so they also spend when they travel, and I want to have visibility into those expenses as well. So I'm going to set these controls in Coast. So what we do, and I don't know if all of you are aware of this new tab in the product, but you have this accounting section here where you will be able to set all of your rules. So we'll start by determining the fields that we want to collect for every transaction. So I have two different things that I want to control for. One, I want to make sure that whenever my technicians are spending, they should provide a job code when they spend at Home Depot or Love's. This way I can tie every expense to their job. So in this case, what I do is I'm gonna set those automations like this. So this one is already built, but you want to require a job code when the merchant category is hardware and supplies. So that's a very common use case that we hear from customers. And then I will build a second rule now where I also want to require an accounting category when the user department is the sales team. And so I trust my sales team to be able to add their accounting category. They always spend at airlines, restaurants, and hotels, so it's very predictable. I know they will be able to do that correctly, so I can now prompt them to add all of this information when they spend. The other thing that I want to set is some approval rules. So I do not want to review every single transaction, but I want to make sure that I take a closer look every time the transaction is above $50. If it's below, I will check it quickly, but I won't pay as much attention. So it works exactly the same way where you can set this type of rule. So in this case, you can choose purchase amount, but you have also other fields that you can leverage. And I'm gonna choose that the purchase amount should be greater than $50. So now I have set my rules, and I want to show you what this would look like for technicians who have to do this. So now your team has the ability to spend, let's say at Home Depot. When they use their card and they use the Coast mobile app, they will immediately get a notification that will tell them to add some additional information. So they click on it, and then they will immediately see the information that you require. So in this case, we are asking for the receipt, a short description of the transaction, and the job code. So I'm gonna upload the receipt, take a photo, you might be familiar with this flow. Same thing for the memo, and then job code. So I imported my job codes, so now you can choose all of the job codes that are available for this account. And now your card user has used all of these, has added all of this information. So all of this will be available for the finance team or admins to review. So now back in the Coast portal, I am the CFO, I want to review the transactions. So now what is going to be available is this new tab here in transaction, awaiting approval, which is where all of the transactions that require approval will appear. So in this case, we have two transactions that meet the criteria that we defined before. So we're going to review them together. So Home Depot, here it is. I can see that all the information is available. There's a receipt, it looks good. There's a job code, it looks good. It means I can approve the transaction. Now I'm going to close it, and then there's this other transaction here, which is missing actually a lot of information. It doesn't have a receipt, it doesn't have a job code, it's for above $400, it's pretty expensive, I'm not really sure what's going on. So what I'm gonna do is request a revision. I can add, please provide additional information, and this is gonna go back to the card user, who is now gonna be asked to add additional information so I can finally approve the transaction. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to this. So these are some of the recent features that we have worked on the corporate card front. This is just a small portion of what is available, but there's a lot more that you could be doing if you're interested in streamlining your expenses. I specifically want to call out a few things. One is the ability to speed up your transaction categorization. We know it's very painful to code every transaction with the right accounting category, maybe add a few additional things. Coast has some really good solutions to help you speed this up. And then we also sync with a lot of different accounting systems to help you manage your accounting reconciliation as well. So if you're interested in learning more about those features, please drop corporate card in the chat. You can turn it on yourself, but it's very effective when someone from our team walks you through this and can really adjust this process based on how your finance team operates. So I highly recommend this. If you drop corporate card in the chat, our team will reach out and can help you get this set up. The last thing I'll say about this is that it's included in your current subscription. There is no additional fee. And so if you want to use this, it's at the same cost that you pay today for your fuel card. Great. And last thing, I want to give you all an overview of 2 additional products that are going live very soon and that I am really excited about. So the first thing is pretty big. You know Coast as a card. It's a fuel card, it's a corporate card. But we also know that the accounts payable process can be very manual for a lot of you. And so that's something that we've consistently heard. And so we wanted to help businesses like you automate the accounts payable process. You get lots of invoices all over the place. You get them by mail, you get them by email. Maybe they live on different platforms. You need to enter them manually into your system, type every amount, every vendor, and all of this. We know it's very painful. You need to chase people for approvals when they are vendor owners and things like this. You need to make sure the payment happens at the right time so you can take advantage of the maybe early payment discounts or just want to optimize for your cash flow. And all of this is difficult to manage today. And so we've built a solution to help you deal with that. And so the team has been working hard on this. It's almost ready to be used. And so if you're interested in joining our beta program, sorry, I'm gonna drink a little bit of water. So if you're interested in being part of this early access program, please drop bill pay in the chat and Larry and our team will reach out and enroll you so you can try it out. And the last thing I'll share today, and you probably heard about it because we sent you a notice email a few weeks ago, is a new rewards program. Coast has some rebates on fuel, 1% cash back on your corporate card, but until now, it was already applied to your statement credit, which is how fuel cards usually work. But by discussing with a lot of you guys, we know that a lot of people really value the points programs that they have with their American Express card or Chase card. And so we wanted to give you this level of flexibility as well on Coast. So now the rebates and cashback is going to be unchanged, but we're adding some new flexibility for you to redeem those rewards. And so now instead of just being able to apply your rewards towards your statement, you can now book flights, book hotels, get some gift cards for employee recognition, or even cash out all of these rewards via Venmo or PayPal. So it gives you the same level of flexibility that you have with your American Express or Chase card. We're really excited about this. This is pretty new. There's not a lot of fuel cards that allow for this, and so you would get this on all of your expenses. So we know it's a big change and very exciting. So we will have a second session on the 19th, on March 19th, for you to ask additional questions and to cover all of this. Great, and I think that is it. Now time for questions. We've seen there's a lot of activity in the chat, which is always great to see. So let's see what questions we can take a look at.
Cool. I think there was a good amount going on, Elise. There was a couple of questions around, does the fuel finder take into account the better rebates as well? Yeah, so the price that's reflected in the fuel finder takes into account the rebate. So the price that is shown is the net price. And then a couple more. So something on rewards, since that was a really exciting update. Lise, do rewards have different values depending on how you redeem them?
Yeah, so every redemption option has the exact same rate. So you will earn rewards for the same rate. So let's say you have 1% on a $200 transaction, so that is $2. Those $2 can be redeemed the same way for gift cards or travel. So all of the rewards are applied in the same way depending on how you redeem them.
Cool. There's a variety of questions around approving spend. I think maybe a little bit of clarification around when somebody would want to request spend versus after the transaction and requiring a revision. So here's a question. Let's see. So yeah, there's some questions around like what would they be approving since the transaction already went through versus like, is the employee still trying to make the transaction at this point? So I think it's just a little bit of clarification of, I think, pre-transaction versus post-transaction.
Can you explain this question again, Jesse?
Yeah, so I think the question is around when the employee tries to make a purchase. So I think, so it's like before they were to try to make the transaction, they can request for additional spend. Is that right? And then
yes,
yeah, I'll let you. And then if the transaction has already went through, but you want to require a revision, maybe it's
yes,
they didn't upload their receipt, then you can, as an admin or the fleet manager, request that. Is that right?
Yes,
okay, cool.
That's how it works. So there's different moments. So before the transaction, if you want people to make a request for a transaction, they will have to proactively make the request, and they will add an amount, a merchant, and a reason. That's it for now. We might expand the additional fields that you will be able to collect. If you have some feedback, please share with us. This is always very interesting for us. And then once you let them spend, immediately after, we will ask them to add some additional information, the ones that you asked them to add, so maybe a receipt, maybe a job code. And then again, after this, once the admin or the finance team reviews the transaction and asks for revision, this is again another message that they can get. So you can again ask them to provide the receipt, the memo, whatever you need to feel comfortable approving the transaction.
Awesome. Great. What else do we have? Maybe a question around bill pay, since that's also a really exciting update. Does the bill pay product work with any type of invoices? I imagine that, some folks might have a mix of paper and email invoices.
Yes, so you will have two ways to import your invoices. One is directly through the Coast portal where you can import your transaction. So maybe you scanned your bill, or maybe you took a photo of it. We have a really cool OCR feature that is going to be able to scan automatically all the details and extract everything. The other method that you can use is especially interesting when you get receipts or invoices by email. You can forward it directly to a specific email address that will be sent to your Coast portal, and that will again apply the same scanning method. So We know people get different invoices. There's a lot of mom and pop shops that still issue paper receipts. And so all of this can be managed with Ghost with those two methods.
Awesome. Here's one kind of specific question, but I think will apply to many. So if a driver paid for parking with Coast, is there a way to set up a like project number requirement at the time of purchase?
Yes, so you can choose field collection. You can apply this based on a lot of different fields. I can actually probably show this again just so it's clear for everyone. Let me show this. Okay, so let's go back to this one, field collection. So if you wanted to select job codes or whatever else for parking, you will set it up like this. So you are going to require, in this case, you can say job code. In here you have all the different fields that you can use to do this. So in this case, you want to use a merchant category and here you can say parking. So I'm going to go find this right here. So now you have this rule where every time a parking transaction happens, the person is going to be asked to do a job code. So as you can see, it's very flexible. We want to make sure we can cover any use case, and all of you have very specific setups. And so this should hopefully allow you to get as flexible as you need to meet your needs.
Sweet. Great demo live. That was super helpful. Just kind of pulling on another question. If someone attaches a receipt in Coast, does it come through in QuickBooks Online so that I can see the receipt in either system?
Yes. So there's two different ways to sync with QuickBooks Online. And so there's one method which is called bank feeds, which is what usually other credit card companies use, which only shares a limited amount of information about the transaction. It's usually just the amount, the date, and the merchant, I think. Coast has built a really cool integration that allows you to share a lot more information with QuickBooks. And so we covered some of the fields that you can get. All of this can be sent to QuickBooks with the receipt. And it's a really powerful thing. And it's usually a different way to how you operate today. But Coast gives you a lot more flexibility in the number of information that you collect for every transaction, and all of this can be sent to QuickBooks. So if you're interested, our team loves implementing this, and so reach out to us and we can help you get set up. But yeah, this is definitely one of the most valuable features that our customers use today.
Great. And just to clarify, Lise, only with QuickBooks Online?
So QuickBooks Online, but also QuickBooks Desktop, we have a different process for this because it's a little bit less, there's a bit more constraints around how we send things, but we have a different process that also works to send receipts with QuickBooks Desktop.
Great.
Will Coast have a class field that it sends to QuickBooks? Yes. So we import class and you can change class in Coast and then push it back to QuickBooks. So any field that you use in QuickBooks, product team is here, I hope I'm accurate, but class definitely, and then additional fields that you have, all of this can be sent back to QuickBooks.
Awesome. And yes, Sage Intacct, NetSuite as well. Lots of discussion in the chat. We will be definitely certain to follow up with anybody who needs, more technical help. Our team is going to definitely follow up with you guys so that all these questions are answered. Another popular question is this webinar recorded? Will it be shared? Absolutely. I know that we covered a lot, and I have a bad habit of also speaking fast, so we will definitely be sharing this afterwards. I think, it's one more minute. I think that wraps up our webinar for today. Just want to say thank you so much again. Hopefully you guys are just as excited to use these features that, our team at Coast were to build them. So just for anybody on the call that's not yet a Coast customer, feel free to scan the QR code and we'll get you set up over a phone call with somebody from our team. If you are a Coast customer but want assistance in getting any of these features set up, I know a lot of them are exciting and maybe new, feel free to drop interested in the chat and we'll definitely be sure to follow up. And we'll leave this up for a little bit so that folks have time to drop in, digest, scan, all the things. But that is all that we have today. We have the rewards webinar on March 19th, so stay tuned from us. We always have a lot of great sessions like this one. So really appreciate everybody's time.
Thanks, everyone.
And yes, this is a special gas girl hat, which I wear a lot.